The sterile scent of antiseptic clung to everything in the hospital room, a grim reminder of the battle being waged within its walls. Park Seo-joon sat beside his son's bed, the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor a relentless soundtrack to his despair. Little Min-joon, barely 7 years old, lay pale and still, his chest rising and falling shallowly. The doctors had been blunt, brutally so. "We've done everything we can, Mr. Park," Dr. Lee had said, his voice laced with a weary resignation. "There's nothing more we can do. It's a matter of time now." Seo-joon had refused to accept it. He had pleaded, begged, even offered to sell everything he owned to fund experimental treatments, anything that might offer a sliver of hope. But the answer was always the same. The disease, a rare and aggressive form of leukemia, had ravaged Min-joon's body with terrifying speed. The chemotherapy had failed. The bone marrow transplant was unsuccessful. Science, in all its supposed glory, had reached its limit. He looked at Min-joon, his small face framed by the crisp white pillow. He remembered the boundless energy the boy possessed just months ago, the way he would chase butterflies in the garden, his laughter echoing through the air. That garden, it was Min-joon's sanctuary, a vibrant splash of color and life that stood in stark contrast to the sterile monotony of the hospital. It was there that he met Mr. Kim, the elderly gardener, a man of quiet wisdom and gentle hands. Mr. Kim had always been kind to Min-joon, teaching him about the different flowers, the secrets of the soil, the delicate balance of nature. Min-joon, in turn, had blossomed under Mr. Kim's tutelage, finding solace and joy amidst the vibrant blooms. Now, that garden felt like a distant dream, a painful reminder of what was being lost. "Appa." Min-joon's voice was weak, barely a whisper. Seo-joon's heart leaped. He leaned closer, his hand gently stroking his son's hair. "I'm here, Min-joona. Appa is here." "The flowers," Min-joon murmured, his eyes fluttering open. "Are they still blooming?" Seo-joon swallowed hard, fighting back the tears that threatened to overwhelm him. "Yes, Min-joon. They are. Mr. Kim is taking good care of them." Min-joon managed a weak smile. "Tell him, thank you." Seo-joon nodded, his throat tight with emotion. He would tell him. He would tell Mr. Kim everything. But what could a gardener possibly do when the best doctors in the country had given up? He couldn't imagine what comfort, if any, Mr. Kim could offer in the face of such devastating loss. Days blurred into a nightmarish haze. Seo-joon remained by Min-joon's side, watching helplessly as his son grew weaker, his breaths more labored. The doctors visited less frequently now, their faces etched with pity. They had accepted the inevitable. Seo-joon had not. He clung to the faintest glimmer of hope, refusing to let go, even as the darkness closed in. One afternoon, Mr. Kim appeared at the hospital. He stood hesitantly in the doorway, his weathered hands clasped in front of him, a small, unassuming figure amidst the sterile surroundings. He held a small, woven basket. "Mr. Park," he said, his voice soft and respectful. "I know this is a difficult time. I have something for Min-joon." Seo-joon looked at him, his eyes red-rimmed and weary. He couldn't imagine what Mr. Kim could possibly offer that would make any difference. But he couldn't bring himself to turn him away. "Come in, Mr. Kim," he said, his voice hoarse. Mr. Kim stepped inside, his gaze immediately drawn to Min-joon, who lay sleeping fitfully in the bed. He approached slowly, placing the basket on the bedside table. "What is it?" Seo-joon asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Kim looked at him, his eyes filled with a quiet intensity. "I built something," he said. "Something for Min-joon." He paused, then carefully lifted a small, intricately crafted wooden structure from the basket. It was a miniature greenhouse, no bigger than a shoebox, with delicate glass panes and a tiny door. Inside, nestled amongst the soil, were several small seedlings, vibrant green against the dark earth. Seo-joon stared at the miniature greenhouse, his brow furrowed in confusion. What is this?" "It's a garden," Mr. Kim said simply. "A garden for Min-joon. I built it with special soil, enriched with nutrients and minerals. And these, he pointed to the seedlings, are special plants. Plants that can purify the air, plants that can bring healing and strength. Seo-joon looked at the greenhouse, then back at Mr. Kim, a flicker of something akin to hope igniting within him. He knew it was irrational, foolish even, to place any faith in such a thing. But in that moment, surrounded by the cold, sterile reality of the hospital, the miniature garden felt like a beacon of light, a symbol of life and hope in the face of despair. He had nothing to lose. The doctors had already given up. Perhaps, just perhaps, this small act of kindness, this tiny garden, could offer Min-joon something that science couldn't. Perhaps it could offer a miracle. Seo-joon watched as Mr. Kim carefully positioned the miniature greenhouse on the small table beside Min-joon's bed. The soft glow of the afternoon sun filtered through the glass, illuminating the tiny plants within. He couldn't deny the sense of peace that seemed to emanate from the little garden, a stark contrast to the oppressive atmosphere of the hospital room. How will this help him? Seo-joon asked, his voice laced with a mixture of hope and skepticism. Mr. Kim turned to him, his eyes gentle but firm. The plants will purify the air around him, Mr. Park. They will release oxygen and absorb toxins. But more than that, he paused, they will bring life into this room. Min-joon loves the garden. He understands the language of the plants. This will remind him of life, of growth, of hope. It will give him something to focus on, something to fight for. Seo-joon looked at Min-joon, his small chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. He remembered the joy on his son's face as he tended to his own little patch of flowers in the garden. He remembered the way he would talk to the plants, whispering secrets and encouragement. Could this really make a difference? Could this simple act of kindness somehow awaken something within Min-joon, something that would help him fight back against the disease that was consuming him? What kind of plants are they? Seo-joon asked, his curiosity piqued. These are a special blend, Mr. Kim replied. There's lavender, for its calming properties, chamomile, to ease his pain, and a few varieties of herbs known for their healing qualities. I've also included a small sprig of rosemary, for remembrance. So he doesn't forget the garden and the life waiting for him outside these walls. Seo-joon felt a lump form in his throat. He couldn't help but be moved by Mr. Kim's thoughtfulness, his unwavering belief in the power of nature. He knew it was a long shot, a desperate attempt to grasp at any semblance of hope. But he couldn't deny the feeling that something special was happening in that room. Thank you, Mr. Kim, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you for everything. Mr. Kim nodded, a faint smile gracing his lips. I only wish I could do more, he said. But sometimes, the smallest things can make the biggest difference. Mr. Kim excused himself, leaving Seo-joon alone with Min-joon and the miniature greenhouse. He sat by his son's side, watching him sleep, his gaze constantly drawn to the tiny garden. He noticed a subtle change in the air, a faint, sweet scent that seemed to permeate the room. He imagined the plants drawing in the sterile air and releasing fresh, life-giving oxygen. As the days passed, Seo-joon diligently tended to the miniature garden, following Mr. Kim's instructions carefully. He watered the plants, ensuring they received just the right amount of sunlight. He even found himself talking to them, whispering words of encouragement, hoping that Min-joon could somehow hear him. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, Min-joon began to show signs of improvement. His fever subsided slightly. His breathing became a little easier. He even managed a few weak smiles. Seo-joon dared not to get his hopes up too high, but he couldn't deny the feeling that something was changing. One morning, Min-joon woke up and looked at the miniature greenhouse. His eyes widened slightly, a spark of recognition flickering within them. Appa, he whispered, his voice stronger than it had been in days. The flowers. Seo-joon rushed to his side, his heart pounding in his chest. Yes, Min-joon, he said, his voice trembling with emotion. The flowers are here. Mr. Kim brought them for you. Min-joon reached out a weak hand and gently touched one of the tiny leaves. They're beautiful, he said. Seo-joon felt tears well up in his eyes. He couldn't remember the last time he had seen his sons so lucid, so engaged. "Do you want to water them?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Min-joon nodded weakly. Seo-joon carefully helped him sit up in bed and guided his hand as he poured a small amount of water into the soil. As Min-joon watered the plants, a faint smile spread across his face. He looked at Seo-joon, his eyes filled with a newfound sense of hope. "Appa," he said, his voice clear and strong. I think I'm going to get better." Seo-joon's heart soared. He knew it was too early to celebrate, that there was still a long road ahead. But in that moment, he believed that anything was possible. He believed in the power of hope, the power of nature, and the unwavering love between a father and his son. He believed in the miracle that was unfolding before his very eyes. The gardener had built something that the doctors couldn't, something that medicine couldn't replicate. He had built hope. He had built life. He had built a garden of miracles. Seo-joon stayed by Min-joon's side, a silent vigil of hope and anticipation. The following days were a delicate dance between progress and setbacks. Min-joon would have moments of strength, engaging with the miniature garden, asking questions about each plant, his curiosity rekindled. Then, the fatigue would return, pulling him back into a state of listlessness. Dr. Lee, observing these subtle changes, remained cautiously optimistic. He couldn't deny the positive shift in Min-joon's demeanor, but he also knew that the leukemia remained a formidable foe. One afternoon, as Min-joon was resting, Dr. Lee approached Seo-joon. "Mr. Park," he said, his voice measured, "I've reviewed Min-joon's latest blood work. While it's too early to draw definitive conclusions, there are some unexpected developments. His white blood cell count, while still elevated, hasn't been increasing at the rate we anticipated. And there's been a slight improvement in his overall immune response." Seo-joon held his breath, afraid to let himself believe. "What does this mean, doctor?" "It's difficult to say for certain," Dr. Lee admitted. "It could be a temporary fluctuation. Or it could be that something is stimulating his immune system, helping him to fight back. I'm not suggesting that the garden is a cure, but it's possible that it's playing a role." Dr. Lee paused, his expression thoughtful. "We've been so focused on traditional treatments, on chemotherapy and medications, that we may have overlooked the potential of other factors. The power of the mind, the healing properties of nature, these are things we often dismiss as anecdotal. But perhaps, in Min-joon's case, they're making a difference." Dr. Lee proposed a new approach. While continuing the chemotherapy, he suggested incorporating complementary therapies, such as aromatherapy and meditation, alongside the garden. He also recommended consulting with a nutritionist to ensure Min-joon was receiving the optimal diet to support his immune system. Seo-joon readily agreed. He was willing to try anything, to explore every avenue of hope. He spent hours researching the benefits of aromatherapy, carefully selecting essential oils that were known for their calming and immune-boosting properties. He learned simple meditation techniques and guided Min-joon through them, helping him to focus his mind and visualize healing. Mr. Kim continued to visit, bringing new plants and sharing his knowledge of their medicinal properties. He taught Seo-joon and Min-joon about the importance of connecting with nature, of finding solace and strength in the earth. He told stories of ancient healers who used plants to cure the sick, of the power of belief and the resilience of the human spirit. Slowly, steadily, Min-joon continued to improve. The chemotherapy remained grueling, but he seemed to tolerate it better. He gained a little weight, his color returned, and his energy levels increased. He started spending more time in the garden, tending to the plants, talking to them, sharing his hopes and dreams. One day, as Seo-joon was helping Min-joon prune a small rosemary bush, Min-joon looked up at him, his eyes shining with happiness. "Appa," he said, "I feel stronger. I think I'm really going to get better." Seo-joon wrapped his arms around his son, holding him tight. He didn't want to jinx it, didn't want to get his hopes up too high. But he couldn't deny the feeling that a miracle was indeed unfolding. The garden, the aromatherapy, the meditation, the love and support, it was all working together, creating a synergy of healing. Weeks turned into months, and Min-joon's progress continued. His blood count stabilized, his immune system strengthened, and the leukemia cells began to recede. Dr. Lee was astounded. He had never seen anything like it. He cautiously began to reduce the chemotherapy dosage, monitoring Min-joon closely for any signs of relapse. Finally, the day arrived when Dr. Lee delivered the news that Seo-joon had been praying for. "Mr. Park," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "Min-joon is in remission. The leukemia is no longer detectable." Seo-joon's knees buckled. He sank to the floor, tears streaming down his face. He had prepared himself for the worst, had braced himself for the possibility of losing his son. And now, here he was, hearing the words he had longed to hear. He looked at Min-joon, who was sitting in his bed, surrounded by his beloved plants. Min-joon smiled, his eyes filled with joy. He knew what the doctor had said, and he understood the significance of it. He had fought a long and hard battle, and he had won. The following weeks were filled with celebration and gratitude. Seo-joon and Min-joon spent hours in the garden, planting new flowers, tending to the vegetables, and simply enjoying the beauty and serenity of nature. They visited Mr. Kim, showering him with thanks and appreciation. Mr. Kim simply smiled, his eyes twinkling. With wisdom, "I told you," he said, "sometimes the smallest things can make the biggest difference." The garden was just a catalyst. It was Min-joon's own strength, his own will to live, that brought about this miracle. As Min-joon continued to recover, Seo-joon realized that he had learned a valuable lesson. He had learned that hope can bloom in the darkest of places, that nature can heal in ways that medicine cannot, and that the love between a father and his son can conquer any obstacle. He had learned that miracles are possible if you only believe. And he knew that he would never forget the gardener, who had built something that caused a miracle, the gardener who had reminded him of the power of hope, the healing power of nature, and the enduring power of love. The remission was a fragile thing, a butterfly resting delicately on Min-joon's shoulder. Dr. Lee stressed the importance of continued monitoring, regular checkups, and a lifestyle that supported Min-joon's recovering immune system. Seo-joon took these instructions to heart, becoming a vigilant guardian of his son's health. Life settled into a new rhythm. Hospital visits became less frequent, replaced by trips to the park, picnics under the warm sun, and quiet evenings spent reading stories together. The garden flourished, a vibrant testament to Min-joon's resilience. Mr. Kim remained a constant presence, a gentle guide in their journey back to normalcy. One afternoon, while tending to the tomato plants, Min-joon turned to Seo-joon, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Appa," he said, "I want to help other kids like me." Seo-joon's heart swelled with pride. He had always admired his son's empathy and compassion, but this desire to give back, after everything he had been through, was truly remarkable. "What do you have in mind, Min-joon?" he asked. Min-joon explained his idea. He wanted to create a garden at the hospital, a place where other children battling illness could find solace and hope, just as he had. He envisioned a vibrant space filled with colorful flowers, fragrant herbs, and peaceful corners where they could relax and connect with nature. Seo-joon was immediately on board. He knew that creating such a garden would be a significant undertaking, but he was determined to make his son's dream a reality. He spoke to Dr. Lee, who was enthusiastic about the idea and offered his support. Together, they approached the hospital administration, who readily approved the project. With the hospital's blessing, Seo-joon and Min-joon began planning the garden. They consulted with Mr. Kim, who shared his expertise on plant selection, garden design, and sustainable practices. They also reached out to local nurseries and landscaping companies, who generously donated plants, materials, and labor. The project quickly gained momentum, attracting volunteers from all walks of life. Doctors, nurses, hospital staff, patients' families, and community members all came together to contribute their time and skills. They cleared the land, built raised beds, planted flowers and vegetables, and created a tranquil seating area. Min-joon was actively involved in every aspect of the project, from choosing the plants to painting the benches. He worked tirelessly, his small hands digging in the soil, his face beaming with purpose. The garden became his passion, a symbol of his healing and a testament to his unwavering spirit. As the garden neared completion, Seo-joon reflected on the incredible journey they had undertaken. He had witnessed his son's strength and resilience in the face of unimaginable adversity. He had learned the importance of hope, the healing power of nature, and the enduring strength of love. And he had discovered that even in the darkest of times, miracles are possible. The opening of the hospital garden was a joyous occasion. Patients, families, doctors, nurses, and volunteers gathered to celebrate the culmination of their hard work. Min-joon, standing proudly beside his father, cut the ribbon, officially opening the garden to the public. As children explored the garden, their faces lit up with wonder and delight. They touched the flowers, smelled the herbs, and laughed as they chased butterflies. Seo-joon watched them, his heart filled with emotion. He knew that Min-joon's garden would bring comfort, healing, and hope to countless children for years to come. In the years that followed, Min-joon's health continued to improve. He grew into a strong and vibrant young man, filled with passion and purpose. He remained deeply connected to the garden, tending to it with love and dedication. He also became an advocate for childhood cancer awareness, sharing his story with the world and inspiring others to never give up hope. Seo-joon often found himself sitting in the garden, watching Min-joon interact with the children. He was filled with gratitude for the miracle that had saved his son's life, and for the gardener who had built something that had sparked that miracle. He knew that the garden was more than just a beautiful space. It was a symbol of hope, healing, and the enduring power of love. And he knew that as long as the garden continued to bloom, Min-joon's spirit would continue to shine brightly, inspiring others to believe in the possibility of miracles. The garden became a place of quiet contemplation for Seo-joon as well. He often found himself reflecting on the lessons learned during those harrowing months. The fragility of life, the importance of cherishing every moment, the strength that lies within us all. He learned to appreciate the simple things, the beauty of a sunset, the warmth of a loving embrace, the gentle rustling of leaves in the wind. He also made a conscious effort to slow down, to be more present in his son's life. He prioritized spending quality time with Min-joon, engaging in activities they both enjoyed. They went hiking in the mountains, explored new cities, and simply spent evenings talking and laughing together. Seo-joon realized that the most valuable gift he could give his son was his time and his unconditional love. Mr. Kim, though his steps grew slower with each passing year, remained a fixture in their lives. He would often visit the hospital garden, offering advice and sharing stories with the children. He became a beloved figure, a symbol of wisdom and hope. Seo-joon often wondered what Mr. Kim had known all along, what ancient wisdom resided within him that allowed him to see the potential for healing where others saw only despair. One day, as they were working together in the garden, Mr. Kim turned to Seo-joon, a knowing smile on his face. "The garden," he said, his voice raspy with age, "it is not just about the plants. It is about the connection, the energy, the life force that flows through all things. It is about believing in the power of nature, the power of hope, the power of love." Seo-joon nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. He realized that Mr. Kim had not simply built a garden. He had created a space where healing could occur, where hope could flourish, and where love could thrive. He had tapped into something deeper, something more profound than medicine alone could offer. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the garden, Seo-joon placed his hand on Mr. Kim's shoulder, a gesture of gratitude and respect. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "Thank you for everything." Mr. Kim simply smiled, his eyes twinkling. In the fading light, "The thanks belongs to Min-joon," he said. "He showed us all the true meaning of courage, resilience, and hope." And as Seo-joon looked at his son, tending to the flowers with such care and dedication, he knew that Mr. Kim was right. Min-joon was the true miracle, the embodiment of hope, and the inspiration for a garden that would continue to bloom for generations to come. The doctors may have given up, but the gardener, with his simple act of faith, had unlocked a power that changed everything. The years continued to paint their story onto the canvas of time. Min-joon, now a young man, stood tall, his eyes reflecting the same vibrant life that pulsed through the garden. He wasn't just tending to flowers anymore, he was nurturing a legacy. He'd started a foundation in Mr. Kim's name, dedicated to bringing therapeutic gardens to children's hospitals across the country. Seo-joon watched him, pride swelling in his chest, a stark contrast to the despair that had once threatened to consume him. He'd learned that miracles weren't always grand, sweeping gestures. Sometimes they were quiet acts of devotion, a gardener's knowing smile, a child's unwavering spirit. Mr. Kim, frail but still radiating wisdom, would sit by the window overlooking the garden, his wrinkled hands clasped around a cup of tea. Min-joon would often join him, sharing stories of the foundation's progress, the joy on the faces of children discovering the magic of nature. One crisp autumn afternoon, Min-joon found Mr. Kim unusually quiet. The older man's breathing was shallow, his eyes distant. "Mr. Kim?" Min-joon asked, kneeling beside him. A faint smile touched Mr. Kim's lips. "Min-joon, the garden," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "It's in good hands." Min-joon squeezed his hand. "We'll take care of it, Mr. Kim. Always." Mr. Kim closed his eyes, a peaceful expression settling on his face. He took one last, shuddering breath, and then he was gone. The loss was profound, a deep ache in the hearts of both Seo-joon and Min-joon. They had lost not just a friend, but a mentor, a beacon of hope. The garden felt strangely empty without his presence. The funeral was a quiet affair, attended by a small group of friends and family, and the children from a hospital, each holding a single flower. As they lowered Mr. Kim's casket into the earth, Min-joon scattered seeds of wildflowers, a promise that life, even in the face of death, would continue to bloom. In the days that followed, Seo-joon and Min-joon found solace in the garden. They worked tirelessly, tending to the plants, remembering Mr. Kim's lessons, feeling his spirit in the gentle breeze. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Min-joon approached Seo-joon. "Dad," he said, his voice filled with a quiet determination, "I want to expand the foundation. I want to bring these gardens to every hospital in the world." Seo-joon smiled, a tear tracing a path down his cheek. "I know you will, son. I know you will." And so, Min-joon embarked on a new chapter, driven by a desire to honor Mr. Kim's legacy and to share the healing power of nature with children around the globe. He traveled to distant lands, collaborating with doctors, architects, and gardeners, creating oases of tranquility in the sterile environments of hospitals. He faced challenges, of course. Skepticism from some, funding difficulties, logistical nightmares. But he never wavered, fueled by the memory of his own journey, the unwavering support of his father, and the enduring spirit of Mr. Kim. Years later, Seo-joon stood beside Min-joon, overlooking a newly opened garden in a hospital in rural India. Children, their faces etched with illness, but their eyes sparkling with curiosity, explored the fragrant herbs, the vibrant flowers, the gentle streams. A young girl, her head shaved due to chemotherapy, approached Min-joon, her hand outstretched. "This is beautiful," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Min-joon knelt down, his eyes meeting hers. "It's for you," he said, smiling. "It's a place where you can heal, where you can find peace, where you can dream." As Seo-joon watched them, he realized that the miracle wasn't just about Min-joon's survival. It was about the ripple effect, the countless lives touched by the garden, the hope that bloomed in the hearts of children facing unimaginable challenges. He looked up at the sky, a silent thank you to Mr. Kim, the gardener who had seen beyond the despair, who had planted the seeds of hope, who had built something that caused a miracle. And he knew, with unwavering certainty, that the garden and the spirit it embodied would continue to bloom forever.